Right now, as you watch this video, South America is escaping. Not metaphorically, literally. The entire continent is sliding westward across the planet at the speed your fingernails grow, of 4 centimeters every single year. It's been running from Africa for 200 million years, and it's not slowing down. But here's what nobody talks about. It's heading straight toward something. And when continents collide, the Earth doesn't just shake, it transforms. Mountains rise from ocean floors. Entire coastlines vanish beneath tsunamis. And everything we've built on the assumption of solid ground becomes a memory. The ground beneath your feet isn't ground at all. It's a raft, floating on an ocean of molten rock, drifting through deep time on currents you can't see or feel. We call it terra firma, solid earth, but it's one of the greatest lies we tell ourselves. The truth is far more unsettling. South America's westward journey is just one chapter in the most epic story ever told. The story of a planet that never stops moving. Today, we're following that journey from its origin to its violent, inevitable future. And along the way, we'll uncover catastrophes hiding in plain sight, disasters coded into the very structure of the continents. From the ocean floor to the cities we call home, nothing is as stable as it seems. 200 million years ago, there were no 7 continents. There was one, Pangaea. A supercontinent so massive that if you stood at its center, you'd be 1,500 miles from the nearest ocean. The interior was a desert larger than the Sahara, baked by a sun that never saw clouds. South America and Africa weren't neighbors. They were conjoined twins, locked together in a geological embrace that had lasted hundreds of millions of years. Picture the coast of Brazil. Now picture the coast of West Africa. The fit isn't just similar, it's perfect. Like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle torn apart. The rocks match, the fossils match. Ancient river valleys on one side align perfectly with valleys on the other, carved when they were the same river, flowing through the same land. But deep beneath Pangaea's surface, something was stirring. The mantle, that vast layer of semi-molten rock beneath the crust, was convecting. Heat from the planet's core drove massive currents, rising, spreading, sinking in slow-motion hurricanes of stone, each cycle taking millions of years. And where the mantle rose, it tore the world apart. The rift started small. Hairline fractures in the continental crust, barely noticeable. Then valleys formed, dropping lower and lower. Then basins that filled with seawater, creating long, narrow seas. The Atlantic Ocean wasn't born in a day. It was born in a divorce that took tens of millions of years to finalize. Magma welled up through the widening gap, glowing orange in the darkness of the deep ocean, solidifying into new ocean floor before the cycle repeated. And with each pulse of new rock, South America was pushed further west, Africa further east, like continents riding a conveyor belt made of the planet's own skin. Today, the Atlantic is still growing. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a 40,000-mile underwater mountain range, running from the Arctic to the Antarctic, is the scar that never healed. Magma still rises from the mantle. New crust still forms at the rate of a few centimeters per year. And South America still runs, pushed by forces that dwarf anything humanity could ever create. But it's not running into empty space. It's running into something far more violent. While the Atlantic pushes South America westward, the Pacific Ocean is being swallowed. On the western coast of the continent, something catastrophic is happening in slow motion. The Nazca Plate, a slab of oceanic crust larger than the continental United States, is diving beneath South America at nearly 8 centimeters per year. This is subduction, one of the most violent geological processes on Earth. Imagine taking a ceramic dinner plate and forcing it beneath a wooden cutting board. Now imagine both the plate and the board are 20 to 30 miles thick and weigh billions of tons. That's what's happening right now off the coast of Chile and Peru. As the Nazca Plate plunges into the mantle, it drags the ocean floor, sediment, water, and everything else down with it. The pressure is unimaginable. At depths of 100 miles, the rock becomes plastic, deforming like clay under forces that would vaporize diamond. The friction between the plates is immense, generating enough heat to melt rock and forge magma chambers that feed volcanoes along the entire Andes range. And the result? The Andes Mountains, the longest continental mountain range on Earth. Still rising, still growing, built on the back of a plate being devoured alive. Aconcagua, the highest peak in the Western Hemisphere at nearly 23,000 feet, is a monument to subduction. Every meter of elevation represents countless earthquakes, countless eruptions, countless millennia of one plate consuming another. But subduction doesn't just create mountains. It creates earthquakes unlike anything most people can imagine. Chile, Peru, Ecuador, these aren't just earthquake zones. They're earthquake factories operating 24 hours a day. Small tremors happen constantly, barely felt. But the big ones, the great earthquakes, those are different. The 1960 Valdivia earthquake, the most powerful ever recorded, was a magnitude 9.5. The rupture zone extended over 800 miles, roughly the distance from New York to Chicago. The shaking lasted 10 minutes. 10 minutes of the earth tearing itself apart. It killed thousands in Chile. It generated tsunamis that crossed the Pacific at the speed of a jet aircraft and killed people in Japan 15 hours later, 6,000 miles away. That earthquake was South America's westward journey made violent. The Nazca Plate, stuck against South America for decades, finally slipped, releasing centuries of accumulated stress in a single catastrophic moment. And it will happen again, not if, when. South America isn't the only continent with a subduction problem. 1,200 miles north, off the coast of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, lies one of the most dangerous geological features on the planet, the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Here, the Juan de Fuca Plate is sliding beneath North America at about 4 centimeters per year. It's smaller than the Nazca Plate, but it's just as deadly. For 300 years, it's been silent. No major earthquakes, no tsunamis. Nothing but the occasional tremor that barely rattles windows. But silence isn't peace. It's tension building. It's a bowstring being drawn back year after year, decade after decade, century after century. The last time Cascadia broke was January 26, 1700, at approximately 9 p.m. local time. We know the date because of trees. Ghost forests along the Washington coast, red cedars killed when the ground suddenly dropped 6 feet and salt water flooded in, preserved the exact year in their growth rings. A magnitude 9 earthquake ruptured the entire zone at once, from Northern California to Vancouver Island. 600 miles of coastline moved in an instant. The shaking lasted for 5 minutes, maybe longer. Entire Native American villages vanished. The tsunami was so massive that it crossed the Pacific and was recorded in Japanese historical documents as an orphan tsunami, a wave with no earthquake, arriving mysteriously on the morning of January 27, 1700. Today, geologists estimate there's a 1 in 3 chance of another magnitude 9 earthquake in the next 50 years. That's not distant future. That's within our lifetimes. Seattle, Portland, Vancouver. Cities built on the assumption of stability, home to millions of people, perched on the edge of a tectonic time bomb. But the danger doesn't stop at the coastline. The Pacific Northwest wasn't built for earthquakes. The building codes are modern now, but thousands of structures predate them. Bridges, highways, water systems, all designed for a world that doesn't shake. When Cascadia ruptures, and it will rupture, it won't just shake the ground. It will liquefy the soil beneath entire neighborhoods, turning solid earth into something closer to water. Buildings don't crack in liquefaction, they sink, tilting at impossible angles before disappearing into the ground like ships going down. Roads don't split, they vanish into the earth like quicksand. And the tsunami that follows will arrive in minutes, not hours, giving coastal communities almost no time to evacuate. This is the cost of living on a moving planet. This is the price of forgetting that the earth never stops. But you don't need an earthquake for the ground to swallow a city. Sometimes all it takes is time and thirst. Across the United States, major cities are sinking. Not because of tectonic activity, but because of us. Houston, New Orleans, parts of the San Francisco Bay Area, even sections of New York City, they're all subsiding, dropping centimeters every year. Some areas are losing inches annually. The culprit? Groundwater extraction. When you pump water from underground aquifers, you're not just removing liquid, you're removing support. The ground above compresses like a sponge being squeezed, and unlike a sponge, it doesn't bounce back, ever. The process is called land subsidence, and it's irreversible. In some parts of California's Central Valley, the land has dropped nearly 30 feet since the 1920s. 30 feet. That's a 3-story building worth of earth, just gone. Roads buckle, aqueducts crack. Infrastructure built on one elevation suddenly finds itself on another. Houston has sunk more than 10 feet in some areas since the 1920s, primarily because of groundwater pumping and oil extraction. The city now floods more easily, more frequently, more catastrophically. Hurricane Harvey in 2017 wasn't just a storm problem, it was a subsidence problem. Water had nowhere to go because the land had dropped below original flood control elevations. New Orleans is sinking at about 2 inches per year in some neighborhoods. The city is already below sea level in most places, protected only by levees that must constantly be raised to compensate for the sinking. It's a race between engineering and geology is winning. And in coastal cities like Miami, subsidence combines with rising sea levels to create a perfect storm. Miami Beach now floods during high tide on sunny days. No storm necessary. The ocean simply rises high enough to overflow the streets because the streets have dropped and the ocean has risen. These cities aren't being destroyed by sudden catastrophes. They're being erased in slow motion, sinking beneath the weight of their own thirst, disappearing into the void left by water we've taken from the ground beneath our feet. But perhaps the strangest threat lurking in our moving planet is one you've probably never heard of: turbidity currents. These are underwater avalanches, but calling them avalanches doesn't capture the violence. Imagine a wall of sediment, rocks, and debris mixed with seawater, thundering down continental slopes in complete darkness at speeds up to 60 miles per hour. These currents can travel for hundreds of miles, carving canyons in the ocean floor deeper than the Grand Canyon, severing everything in their path. In 2006, an earthquake off the coast of Taiwan triggered a series of turbidity currents that cut through 11 undersea fiber optic cables like a chainsaw through string. Internet and phone services across Asia collapsed instantly. Financial markets stuttered. Communication between entire countries went dark. Repairs took weeks. because you can't just walk out and fix a cable lying 4 miles beneath the ocean surface. And this wasn't even a large event. This was a magnitude 7 earthquake, powerful but not catastrophic. A magnitude 9 could trigger turbidity currents across an entire ocean basin. Today, 99% of international data travels through undersea cables, not satellites, cables. Physical fiber optic lines lying on the ocean floor, often in the exact paths where turbidity currents are most likely to occur. Your video calls, your emails, your banking transactions, the global financial system, stock markets, everything that makes the modern world function. All of it depends on a network of cables lying exposed on the ocean floor. There are approximately 500 major submarine cables crossing the world's oceans. Many run through earthquake-prone regions. Many lie on or near steep continental slopes where turbidity currents form. And we have no way to stop these currents once they start. We can only wait, then spend months repairing the damage. One major turbidity event in the right location, triggered by the right earthquake, could sever communications between continents for weeks, maybe months. The economic impact would be measured in trillions. And it's not a question of if, but when. South America is still running, pushed by the same forces that tore Pangaea apart 200 million years ago. The Atlantic is still growing, spreading at the pace of fingernails. The Nazca Plate is still diving beneath the Andes, building mountains and storing energy for the next great earthquake. Subduction zones around the Pacific Rim are still locked, still accumulating stress that will one day be released in minutes of incomprehensible violence. Cities are still sinking into voids of our own creation, dropping centimeters every year while we pretend the ground is solid. And somewhere, deep beneath the ocean, in darkness no human eye has ever seen, the next turbidity current is gathering force, waiting for the tremor that will set it loose. This is the planet we live on, a world in constant motion, driven by forces older than life itself, indifferent to our borders, our cities, our entire civilization. We live on rafts of rock, floating on an ocean of magma, and those rafts are colliding, subducting, tearing apart at this very moment. We built our world on the assumption of stillness. We built cities as if the ground would never move. We laid cables as if the ocean floor would never shift. We pumped water from beneath our feet as if the earth above would never sink. But the earth has never been still, not for a single moment in its 4.5 billion year history. It won't be still tomorrow. It won't be still in 100 years. And it won't be still when the next great disaster strikes. So the question isn't whether these disasters will happen. The question isn't even when, because we know the answer is soon, geologically speaking, maybe even within our lifetimes. The only question that matters is this: will we be ready when they do? If you want to see more deep dives into the hidden forces shaping our world, the catastrophes written into the structure of our planet, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because the planet isn't waiting, and neither should you.